So this morning I was thinking about the importance of motivation. And our motivation is so important, especially from a Buddhist point of view, because it directs and it influences our actions. And especially for those of us who consider ourselves Buddhists, we're checking our motivation throughout the day. The purity of our intention is what actually ends up determining the value of our actions. And we constantly monitor our motivation and repeatedly try to turn our mind towards benefiting others as part of that larger bodhicitta motivation. So it's important to be aware of what motivates us to act, because it's not always possible to distinguish whether an action is virtuous or non-virtuous just by the action alone. We have to really look at what's motivating the action. So it's interesting to notice that there are causal motivations. We set a very strong causal motivation every morning when we do our 3 motivations, but there are also immediate motivations that are at work and influencing us throughout the day. So we need to check before we do an action. Has my mind shifted from the morning motivation? Is it motivated by a non-virtuous state of mind, or maybe one of the 8 worldly concerns, or self-centeredness in a way that would, change the outcome of an otherwise seemingly virtuous action. But no matter what we're doing, mundane actions as well as spiritual actions, then we're encouraged to keep our long-term bodhicitta motivation in mind. And the stronger we develop that bodhicitta motivation, then the stronger that influences our actions and their outcome. So we ask ourselves throughout the day, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I taking a walk today? Why am I engaged in offering service? Why am I going to take time to read this book, or do this action, or listen to this talk? Often people ask us when we sit down to a talk, why are you here? Why did you come? Is it just because it's on the schedule, or is it because you've actually thought about the benefit to yourself and others? So we check up to make sure that afflictions aren't running the show, that we're not undermined by these other sorts of things. I thought it was interesting when I came across this line in one of Geshe Sopa's commentaries on the Lamrim Chimmo, that just by having the thought, the wish or the thought, I wish to be of benefit to all sentient beings. I think that's what it said. I wish for this action to be of benefit to all sentient beings. Even just that simple thought, it registers, or it's bodhicitta. Just that thought. Of course, bodhicitta will be much stronger when we inform that with cultivating one of the 2 methods for developing bodhicitta. But just having that thought, may this be of benefit to all sentient beings, makes an action influenced by bodhicitta. So as a support for developing bodhicitta, we're encouraged to meditate on the kindness of others. And once we're aware of the far-reaching kindness we receive from others every day, it's natural to want to repay their kindness. So as we live in an affluent society, it's so easy to overlook this. We don't take the time to stop and think about this. That our very survival depends on the kindness of others. And to be so aware of that, to be so familiar with that just recognizing that every bit of food that we eat, every bit of things that we drink, all the clothing, the shelter, the medicine that we use, everything we touch actually is due to the kindness of others. And we can become so familiar with that throughout our day, this kind of awareness is influencing what we're doing. Even picking up a knife in the kitchen and just thinking, wow, somebody produced this knife. Somebody, I'm going to use it to chop vegetables, but somebody has brought this into the world and created it, designed it, got the raw materials together, put it together so that I can use it. So everything that we depend on, food, clothing, shelter, medicine, all the information we rely on. Think how many times you check information on the internet or on a phone, something like that. Friendship we have in the world is in dependence on others. Our Dharma practice, like generosity, ethics, fortitude, all of these depend on the kindness of others. And especially great love and great compassion depend on infinite sentient beings. So without focusing on all sentient beings, there is no great loving kindness, no great compassion, no liberation, no enlightenment. All of our Dharma opportunities are dependent on the prayers of the Buddhas and the kindness of our teachers to bring them about. but also on the kindness of other sentient beings, like all the people who run Dharma centers and all the people who put together retreats, all the people who post things on the internet or publish books, things like that. So as we go through our day, we're encouraged to really think about, so that it's not just something we do on the cushion and then forget about it as we engage in other activities, but we really are encouraged to think, all of this is coming about due to the kindness of others. And so then we are encouraged to think, okay, so I'm going to do this action, whatever action it is, to repay the kindness of other sentient beings. And even if we're not able to actually help all sentient beings, or not able to do something physically, not able to do something verbally to affect large groups of people, just that thought alone, wishing to be able to help them, is a way that we begin to repay their kindness. So I think that's worth thinking about. We might feel kind of helpless or ineffective in our little Dharma practice or what we do, but our thoughts are very powerful and very expansive. And so the more we cultivate them, then we're actually moving to a point where we can repay their kindness in the most extensive way. So recently I found another doorway into this practice that I found quite surprising and quite interesting. And that was reflecting on the kindness. I was rereading Jeffrey Hopkins' book, Emptiness Yoga. And there's a section in that book where he's talking about one of the reasonings used for understanding emptiness called the reasoning of diamond slivers refuting the four extremes of production. And so we find this in Nagarjuna's treatise, also Chandakirti's commentary to that, and Tsongkhapa's illumination of the thought. And really, he really goes into a lot of detail on each of these four refutations. And so Jeffrey Hopkins, in this section, he says, first we must see that all these things must be products, that they are all produced from causes and conditions. You have to use your imagination wherever you go and whatever you do, allowing everything that is appearing to appear within the context of being a product. You have to go around pointing at things and saying, this tree is a product of a seed, soil, air, and so forth. Your imagination is vast. Extend this thought as far as you can. Then you will start noticing how things appear to you. Here is a system that says all these things do not exist the way they appear. This system attacks these appearances by means of reasoning. You have to open your mind to notice how objects appear. So I began doing this meditation on the cushion, just calling to mind simple things, my table, my book, my little iPad, and stopping to think about all the causes and conditions, or as many as I could think of, all the causes and conditions that brought this about. And because of my familiarity with this other meditation on thinking about I only have these things because of the kindness of others, and that naturally leads to this wish to repay the kindness of others, it was very interesting to see how both of these points of view converged in the middle. Here, on one hand, I was trying to cultivate compassion and bodhicitta, and that led me to understanding the dependence of all things. And then on the other hand, I was trying to think about emptiness and the dependence of causes and conditions, and that led me to think about the kindness of others. So these two thoughts can be so mutually compatible and reinforcing, even at a very introductory level, an ordinary level like ours. I mean, certainly on a path, they are mutually supportive, but even on a regular, everyday practice, these two can come together like this. So if we habituate ourselves with these two contemplations, really there's not a moment during the day that we're not either meditating on the kindness of others or the emptiness of something, because it depends on so many things. It's just a matter of training our minds to do that. So I'm not saying I've done that. I'm starting that process, and it can take up the whole day. What I've seen is that just taking one or two things in a meditation session, it just leads down, I won't say the rabbit hole, but it just leads to all these causes and conditions that just spread out like a huge, what would you call it? I don't know, a huge thing. So let's do this. If it's of interest of you, let's do this so that we can be of greater and greater benefit to all beings.